Fear is one of the most universal human experiences. We fear loss. We fear change. We fear failure, rejection, illness, aging, and death. Even on the spiritual path, fear quietly follows us. Fear of doing it wrong, fear of not awakening, fear of losing what little peace we have found. In the Heart Sutra, however, we hear a remarkable declaration. Because there is no obstruction in the mind, there is no fear. This is not a promise of comfort. It is a radical statement about freedom. Today, we will explore how emptiness, as taught in the Heart Sutra, allows us to transcend fear. Not by suppressing it, not by escaping life, but by seeing reality clearly, just as it is. Fear as a mental construction. The Buddha never denied fear as an experience. What he pointed to again and again is that fear arises due to causes and conditions. In the Samyutta Nikāya, the Buddha explains that suffering, including fear, arises through dependent origination, when ignorance conditions craving, clinging, and becoming. Fear is not a solid enemy attacking us from the outside. It is a mental event, constructed moment by moment. When we feel fear, it often appears as if something is fundamentally wrong. But from the perspective of the Dharma, fear is information. It tells us where we are clinging. The Heart Sutra and the end of fear. The Heart Sutra states, "With no obstruction in the mind, there is no fear. Far beyond inverted views, one realizes nirvana." This line rests on everything that came before it. The sutra has already declared that the five aggregates are empty, that there is no fixed self, that there is no attainment to grasp. Fear collapses when its foundation disappears. Fear needs a someone to protect, a something to lose, and a future to worry about. When these are seen as empty, fear loses its power. What does obstruction in the mind mean? An obstruction is not an external problem. It is a mental fixation. In Majjhima Nikāya 2, Sabbasava Sutta, the Buddha explains that suffering arises when the mind becomes entangled in unwise attention, grasping at I, me, and mine. Obstruction means, I must not lose this. I cannot allow that to happen. This should not be. Each of these thoughts tightens the mind. Emptiness loosens it. A simple example, fear of public speaking. Imagine someone who fears speaking in public. They are not afraid of sound waves or people sitting in chairs. They are afraid of an image. How will I appear? What if I fail? What will they think of me? Fear is born from identification, but if the speaker simply sees, there is speaking happening, there is listening happening, there is no solid self being judged, the fear softens. This is emptiness in action. Fear of change and impermanence. Many of our fears come from resisting change. In anicca, impermanence, teachings found throughout the Nikāyas, the Buddha emphasizes that all conditioned things are unstable. We fear losing youth. We fear losing relationships. We fear losing health. But the real fear is not change. It is the belief that something should remain unchanged. Emptiness reveals that nothing ever had a fixed nature to begin with. What was never solid cannot truly be lost. Fear and the illusion of control. Fear often disguises itself as a desire for control. We plan excessively. We worry constantly. We replay future scenarios in our minds. In Anguttara Nikāya, the Buddha reminds practitioners that clinging to control is a subtle form of craving. When we deeply see emptiness, we understand. Life unfolds according to conditions. We participate, but we do not command. This realization does not make us passive. It makes us flexible. Flexibility is the opposite of fear. Fear of death, the deepest fear. At the root of all fear is the fear of death. The Buddha addressed this directly. In teachings on non-self, anattā, such as Samyutta Nikāya 2259, the Buddha asks, if the body is not self, if feelings are not self, if perceptions, formations, and consciousness are not self, what exactly dies? The Heart Sutra echoes this insight by declaring, no birth and no death. This does not deny biological death. It denies the existence of a permanent entity that dies. When there is no fixed self, death loses its sting. A candle flame analogy. Imagine lighting one candle from another. Is the flame the same or different? We cannot say it is exactly the same. We cannot say it is completely different. This analogy, often used in early Buddhist teachings, helps us understand continuity without a self. Life continues as a process, not as a possession. Fear dissolves when we stop demanding certainty from what is inherently fluid. Fear on the spiritual path. Even sincere practitioners experience fear. Fear of losing identity. Fear of emptiness itself. Fear that if there is no self, what will remain? In Majjhima Nikāya 64, the Buddha explains that clinging to existence and non-existence both lead to suffering. Emptiness is not annihilation. It is freedom from extremes. When emptiness is misunderstood intellectually, fear grows. When emptiness is realized experientially, fear fades. Emptiness is not nothingness. This is crucial. Many people fear emptiness because they think it means nothing matters. But emptiness means interdependence. Because nothing exists independently, everything matters. Because there is no separate self, compassion arises naturally, fear isolates, emptiness reconnects. A modern example: fear of failure. Consider someone afraid of failure. They say, "If I fail, I am worthless." This is not a fact. It is a story built on self-identity. When we see that self is a changing collection of conditions, failure becomes an event, not a verdict. Learning replaces fear. Curiosity replaces shame. This is the liberating power of emptiness. The role of mindfulness. Mindfulness allows us to see fear clearly without feeding it. In Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta, Majjhima Nikāya 10, the Buddha teaches observing feelings as feelings, not as my fear. When fear is seen as a passing phenomenon, its intensity decreases. Emptiness becomes visible in direct experience. Fearlessness as a natural outcome. Fearlessness is not bravery. It is not forcing oneself to be strong. In the Buddhist tradition, fearlessness arises naturally from wisdom. The Buddha is often described as the fearless one, not because he eliminated danger, but because he eliminated delusion. When there is nothing to defend, fear disappears. Living without fear does not mean living without care. This is an important clarification. Transcending fear does not mean ignoring consequences or becoming careless. It means responding wisely rather than reactively. A mind free from fear sees more clearly, listens more deeply, and acts more skillfully. This is why compassion and wisdom always appear together in the Heart Sutra. Daily life practice, meeting fear with emptiness. When fear arises, instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this?" ask gently, "What am I holding on to right now?" Often the answer is an image of self. Seeing that image clearly is already a release. No battle is needed. The freedom beyond fear. The Heart Sutra concludes by pointing beyond fear to awakening. When inverted views fall away, when grasping loosens, when emptiness is lived rather than understood, fear no longer dominates the mind. Life is still uncertain. Challenges still arise, but the heart is no longer imprisoned. Fear is not your enemy. It is a teacher pointing to where clinging still hides. Through the wisdom of emptiness, the mind becomes unobstructed and fear loses its foundation. This is not a distant promise. It is a living possibility. When we see clearly, we live freely. This is the gift of the Heart Sutra, not the absence of life's challenges, but the end of fear's rule over the heart. May this wisdom bring courage, clarity, and peace for the benefit of all beings.